Hello. There we go. All right, so I want all the men who are able-bodied like me to stand up and make room for women. So any women that are back here, I want them to have a seat. I want men to give up their seats. And let's make sure we get the women taken care of. And then we'll see where we stand on seats. Look at this group. This is the smartest group in the house. Awesome. Okay. Ladies, all the ladies, please make sure you have a seat. And then I'm going to let the guys go back to their seat if you don't take them. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, go back to your seats. Just want to make sure we got men standing and women not standing if they don't want to. Way to go, guys. Thank you. I see a lot of seats available. Raise your hand if there's a seat next to you. Okay, over here, back there. Looks like there's 2 right there. Over here, there's 3. Over here, there's plenty of seats if you want. If you want to stand, that's great. Last call. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Lord, thank you for today. We bless you, and we just pray you would anoint Pam as she shares. In the name of Jesus. Amen. All right. Let's go. Give Pam a big round of applause.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate all of you greatly. Just a quick show of hands. Who here attended the talk that I did at Church for All Nations last year? Just raise your hand. Okay, just a few of you. A tiny smidge of this, you're going to recognize probably a couple of slides, but the rest of it is all new material. There is a lot that has happened, particularly over this past 6 months to a year. And there are new approaches that we're absolutely having to take as a result of the information that's continuing to come out. Okay? So also just to give me a little bit of a gauge here, who here is a member of Health Recovery Ministry? Raise your hands if you're a member. Okay, fantastic. This presentation will be online on Health Recovery Ministry for the members. It will be behind the firewall for the membership only. Part of that is to keep the website from being targeted so darn hard. I don't know how much you guys realize this lately. Do not use Google as your search engine. Do not use Google as your search engine. At least you've got to get to a DuckDuckGo or something like that. Brave is absolutely fantastic for a search engine. If you're not careful, here's what's happening when you're going in to search health topics right now. You're literally getting everything that's Big Pharma supported, to include some sites that look like they are holistic, but they are not. And it's subtle. You have to go back, you've got to look at who's on the board, you have to follow the money trail to know whether or not you're dealing with an authentic site. So that's part of what our mission is with Health Recovery Ministry, is our job is to get in there and to make sure that you're getting accurate information that's vetted through research and vetted based upon our biblical worldview. And we are also moving forward, we will be doing a lot more calling out of that is not in alignment. Okay? So we're continuing to focus and grow on that. We're bringing on new team members now who will be helping with the fact that I'm like, here it all is, throw it into something simple that we can then put into the website. So if any of you have that journalism bent and want to help us out in that, we would certainly love more members coming alongside that actually can help pick up different areas of expertise and continue to walk that out. So welcome to Keys to Thrive for 2024. Our time, and I could not have asked for a better presentation in church today than what Steve Holt gave us. He nailed it. We are to stand, we are to be victorious, and we are to be making others jealous for Christ. Right? We don't do that when we're doing this. We only do that when we're doing this. Okay, this is a time for which you were created. You are alive right now for a reason. God put you here specifically for this time. By the way, that's a privilege and an honor. That's something to be thankful for. So as we move into this time, everything we're doing here today, even with some of the information I'm presenting, it is designed to empower you so that you can stand, you can start walking out on it, and in that process become a leader for others. That is how we change and have a kingdom revolution, is by becoming a leader for others. So here's the disclaimer. Proceed at your own risk. Once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. And not only can you not unlearn it, you can also be held accountable for it. So as we are learning to take care of this temple, as we are coming into alignment spiritually, emotionally, and physically, if you want to continue to be able to do what Steve says, sit on the couch, watch your TV, and eat your chips, you may want to walk right back out that door. Because the information I'm going to give you is going to be a little convicting in some of that. The other thing is I am not a physician. I have to give the disclaimer to always go to your healthcare provider for your personal medical things. And I will tell you right now, I consider Holy Spirit and Father God to be the healthcare provider.
That's right.
So it is your responsibility to pray over everything I'm giving you and to execute as the Lord leads you. Now the challenge is you have to get out of that position of fear so that you are accurately hearing His voice and standing on it. How do you know that? You will know it is Him because it will provide that peace. As you settle into it, you will feel that strength. You will feel that peace. You will even feel that joy that comes from the Holy Spirit as you are walking it out. So keep that in mind as we continue to move through the presentation. Once the mind has been expanded by a big idea, it will never go back to its original state. We are here to expand our mind and our focus on Christ. And this is the core of it. He is the one who covers us. And under His wings, we trust. He is our shield and our buckler. Right now I'm coming across a lot of people who are dealing with some really serious things. I've had 4, not mild, serious cancer cases that I've encountered recently. And in every single one of those cases, the key to the success of that individual in their recovery is pressing into the Lord, feeling the peace that surpasses all understanding, moving past the fear. Because that C word isn't nearly as big of a word as they're trying to make it seem like. It really is designed to strike fear and to drive us into the hands of a false altar. And we really have to take that back. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of what's going on now is going on, is so that we know where our strength comes from, we learn to stand in it, and we learn to make others jealous for Christ through it. Who here saw Senator Ron Johnson's latest roundtable discussion? Okay, a few of you did. All right, you are definitely informed. Okay, for those of you who have not seen it, please capture that QR code up there with your phone. Also, these will be on my website later. There was a roundtable that was just held with Ron Johnson within the last week. It is a long one, but the information that is there is absolutely fantastic. Okay? There's people coming in from across the world at this point, some of the top scientists, some of the top researchers, who are presenting and revealing the truth about what's going on with COVID, what's going on within federal agencies, all of those things. Okay? It really is an eye-opener. It's fantastically done. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm only going to cover a couple of points. Because what we're supposed to be doing is not constantly rehashing what happened. We need to know. But what we really need to do is, how are we moving forward based upon that information? So even my challenge to you is, as you are dealing with people across the community and they're like, can you believe it? Can you believe it? Oh my goodness, blah, 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 blah. Cut it off. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to stand? What can I do in my home, with my family, with my community to stand? Don't get stuck rehashing the problems. That's like a dog returning to its vomit. Don't do that. We're to note it, and then we're to move to the Most High Authority. We're to ask the Lord how we're to move forward, and then we are to stand and to move on specifically that. One of the things that's been covered well by Dr. Ryan Cole has been what's been going on with the clots and the cancers. It is now commonplace in both the vaccinated and the unvaccinated to see long rubbery clots based upon when they're doing the embalming and autopsies and things like that. The other thing we're seeing is we're seeing a 77% increase in cancer. Okay? The World Health Organization is putting that information out, as much as you can trust their data, along with the reports that we're seeing throughout. We're also seeing a dramatic increase in all-cause mortality. The life insurance folks get this better than anyone at this point in time. Okay? The reality of the situation is the cancers are coming as a result, I believe, of what's happening with the modified RNA. Okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about exactly what that modified RNA is and how it works. The COVID vaccines stimulate the production of something called a spike protein. What that does is that actually has encoded modified RNA. Okay, this is not human RNA. This is genetic modification RNA. Translation, man created, not God created. Okay? That modified RNA as a vaccine is then getting into the cell and generating spike proteins. Well, here's the deal that's really wild. Once it moves into that process of generating those spike proteins, it actually tells the other cells to produce spike proteins. So one of the things that's happening, and most people don't understand this, is your body becomes a little spike protein factory. Those spike proteins are then accumulating in some really interesting places, by the way. The brain. So we're starting to see some cognitive changes, some neurological impacts there. It's accumulating in the reproductive organs. How many of you here have known someone who's gotten pregnant within the last 2 years and miscarried? Raise your hands high, please. We are in the process of experiencing a dramatic reduction in the population in our birth rate, not just the elderly population. Robert Malone said it well when he said, and I quote, "We've caused people to manufacture an engineered toxic protein in their body that we took directly from the military, industrial research, laboratory activities that were being performed under the oversight of the CCP and the People's Liberation Army." go a little farther. This was not just the CCP and PLA. We have some global bad actors, and they have infiltrated our government. They've been there for their entire career. If you've not read the book, The Real Anthony Fauci, I would highly encourage you to read that book. It is an excellent read on the topic. Here's the other thing that I'm finding out. A lot of those miscarriages are occurring in women who were not vaccinated. What happened? Shedding. Shedding was statistically proven by the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical School in May of 2022. What they did is they did a study with parents with children. Parents were vaccinated, children were not. What they did is they measured the children, and they found that the children were demonstrating immunity from the parents' vaccine. Shedding is real. A lot of us have encountered this when we've been traveling and we've been in contained places with large numbers of people, particularly on planes. It's very common that I will find out someone's just flown 3 to 4 days later, they're down. Okay, that is coming as a result of that shedding process, I believe. I do not have proof of that. The issue with the shedding is that now we're moving into a whole new world. Not only are we dealing with shedding with the COVID vaccine, but right here in Denver, in our Denver healthcare system, we're privileged to be on the front lines. Live Ebola vaccine is now being given to the Denver healthcare workers up in Denver. It has a reported 31% shed rate based upon the pharmaceutical company's own report. What is the Ebola vaccine for? Well, it turns out that the Denver healthcare system is the regional medical center for pandemics. So, granted, we are right here at ground zero, guys. Isn't that exciting? Those vaccines started being given last November to the healthcare workers up in Denver. It was reported by News 9, along with other mainstream. And here's the part that I didn't realize until I started researching this a little bit more deeply. We are more of a ground zero than we even thought. If you look at that successful student report right there, if you really want to be on the front lines of helping out with COVID, these are the universities that you should be going to. By the way, this is international, not national. Number 1, Harvard. Number 2, Oxford. Number 3, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Number 4, Colorado State University, Fort Collins. We are number 4 in the country, ranked for the school you want to go to if you really want to be on the front lines of learning about how you can help with COVID. What? That one was a shocker for even me. But hey, we ranked up there with Harvard and Oxford. Isn't that cool? Yeah. And then Johns Hopkins. We came in ahead of Johns Hopkins. Wow. So before you guys go think about sending off your children and your grandchildren to college, you may want to take a look at that list to help you decide where you want them to go. And right now, I'd really heavily be encouraging you to be very careful about them going to any university. We're really running into a lot of issues with the fact that the universities have sold out. The medical schools are heavily controlled by Big Pharma. And so it's really unfair to put a lot of responsibility on our young healthcare providers. They have been heavily indoctrinated at this point. And so what you need to do is pray for them, enlighten them the best that you can, and just proceed very carefully with the mainstream medical system. This article here from the Defender, Children's Health Defense, this is a good source for information, by the way. Robert F. Kennedy started this. He has got a history of standing for environmental issues for many, many years, very successfully pushing back against some of the things that have been happening that are truly tragic in the environmental world. He also has been taking a stand for honest disclosure, fully informed vaccination information. He will tell you he is not anti-vax. He is pro-good facts with good research. So the Defender is definitely one of those sites that I would be tracking if I were you. Epoch Times also does a pretty good job of getting out good healthcare information at this point in time. So Colorado State University is denying the fact that they are doing gain of function research there. I will tell you they actually have a history of doing gain of function types of research. According to Francis Boyle, who's an attorney and a PhD, bioweapons expert, and professor of international law at the University of Illinois, he said it is well known that Colorado State University has a long and ongoing history of specialization in weaponizing insects with biowarfare agents for delivery to human beings. The new lab will magnitudely increase Colorado State University's offensive biowarfare capabilities in gross violation of the Biological Weapons Convention of 1972 and the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989. According to the World Health Organization, 2 of the top pandemics will be studied at that laboratory in Fort Collins. If any of you are familiar with something called deer wasting disease that has affected our deer and elk population, that is a prion, and that prion originated out of Colorado State University and was an escape. And we all see what that's done to our deer and our elk population. Just for those of you who think, fine, I'll avoid the shot, I can avoid the shedding, it is also now going into our food supply. Your salad may contain your vaccines. The patents are out there, the research is out there. I have not seen the latest update as to whether or not it's actually commercial production yet. Modified RNA is in commercial production in our animal population at this point. It's been given to the pork since 2017. So, following you are what you eat, you will be taking that modified RNA. That modified RNA will be speaking to your DNA. What I'm basically saying is, there's only one way to avoid this. And that is Psalm 91. We have got to get into our authority according to the Lord, knowing who we are, listening to Him moment by moment, and learning how to step things out. And just as it says here, He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with Him. That's who we're to be. And just as Peter moved into that position, each one of us will be doing the same through this time, and we'll be shining that light. And here's the one thing to always keep in mind. It's kind of like the old roller coaster they used to have at Disney World. It went upside down, backwards, forwards, it went into the dark, the abominable snowman jumps out at you like this. But even when you were on that ride, you knew where you were going to be when you got off the ride. If you're a follower of Christ, you know where you're going to be when you get off this ride. So here's the deal. You have a choice. You can choose to go through the ride like this, or you can choose to go through the ride like this. And by golly, the last thing I want to do is at the end of this ride is look back and say, gee, I could have had a lot more fun. Yeah. We are here more than conquerors. We are to be boasting in Christ. So as we move through this time, we are to be strengthening each other, exhorting each other, And we are to be literally in joy every single step of the way. Just as Paul said, I count it all joy. And when you think about it, that poisonous snake bit Paul, and Paul did this into the fire. And then they thought he was a god. Isn't that interesting? We have to really focus on our mindset as we go forward. So I'm going to sidestep just a little bit here before I get into exactly how we're going to deal with the challenges that are coming forward, to get all of you guys in touch with the resources that are already here and available to you for free. Now there are components that are deeper in that we have put behind a paid firewall. That's because I have to pay to keep the website up, guys. And I really need to be able to bring in more team members so that we can do a lot more moving forward. So Radical Resilience, and this is radicalresilience.help, was specifically stood up to help us maintain a high level of health. And radical resilience is the ability to maintain a high level of health irrespective of circumstances, regardless of whatever goes on around you. The start of that resilience is being able to know the answer to these questions that are right up here for you, that were posed by Catherine Austin Fitz, who's been on top of this topic now for 2 decades. Who's your banker? Can you guys name your banker? And I don't mean some big corporation. Do you know who's on the board of directors for your bank? If you don't, you might want to think about where you're banking. We're moving into a time where there's things called CBDCs, digital bank currencies. This is already in place in places like China, which means if they don't like what you said, they can shut off your bank account. They're also going to incentivize you into certain social behaviors so that you can get additional credits, which will then allow you to do things like buy food. It is the ultimate slavery. And the only way we're going to avoid those things is to create and to move into a new system. Some of those new systems are being stood up now. Utah, Tennessee, and Texas have come together to create a gold-backed currency banking system. It's starting to be rolled out this month. Other than that, I would encourage you to bank locally with a local bank, and that doesn't mean Wells Fargo. Integrity Bank was stood up right here in Colorado Springs. Right? That's a good place to go. Know who your bankers are. Who's your farmer? Did you know that 1% of the food consumed in this state is produced in this state? 99% of it is shipped in. We have virtually zero resilience in the area of food production. It really is the time to get out there and to start producing something. And we'll give you some tools and keys about how you can do some of that. Personally, I'd love to see chickens in everyone's backyard. They are the ultimate awesome animal to get started with. Who's your sheriff? Did you realize that our sheriff is our constitutional front line? Does your sheriff follow the Constitution? I saw something really interesting the other day. Tucker Carlson did an interview with a veteran who was forced out as a result of the vaccine. The veterans, some active duty, and many retired military are coming together now to stand and to call for the removal of the leadership at the highest levels of the military. For not standing and following the Constitution. For following what we call an illegal order. I'm thrilled to see it. It also raises some questions and some concerns. What would the enemy like to see more than anything? top down, bottom up, inside out. They want to see us fighting each other. We have to speak truth in love. We have to stand in love. Each of us really needs to reach out, engage in conversation, those that we don't necessarily agree with, and build relationships, build trust, without compromising biblical principles. But I'm going to encourage you and challenge each one of you, let's not just become a self-licking ice cream cone of talking to each other. Reach out to those around you who are different than you are and seek to build common ground relationships. That's how we win this. And that's how you build a kingdom revolution. There are 4 steps to becoming radically resilient. First of all, you got to hold every thought captive. You got to get in the right mindset. But you can't be thinking about thinking. Too many times we will lose way too much time to thinking about thinking rather than doing. We've got to be doers. We've got to take a step. It can get really overwhelming. How do you take that first step? Well, you sit down, you pray, and you ask the Lord to give you the steps. You write down everything that comes to mind. And then you ask Him to put it in order. And by the way, this is one of those areas where you really don't lean on your own understanding, having been there and done that. At one point, my family and I were running a 1,200-acre regenerative agriculture operation. We saw something coming. We didn't know it was necessarily COVID in 2020, but we saw something coming. And so we were trying to get into a position to where we could stabilize ourselves and help the community around us. Boy, we had it all figured out. Until we didn't. We experienced a level of spiritual attack that was pretty mind-blowing. And we were completely unprepared for it because we had not experienced the teaching of a Spirit-filled Bible, verse-by-verse church that was willing to address some of these tougher topics. Learned pretty fast. And what we learned more than anything was, you prepare as the Lord tells you to prepare. I joke sometimes that someone's going to buy 5,000 toothbrushes, and that's how the Lord's going to tell them to prepare. And then someone else is going to come along and trade them for those, for 4,000 of those toothbrushes. I mean, when God's in charge and He's the one who's working it, He doesn't operate the same way we do. Now, we have a responsibility to vet it every single step of the way against other godly people who hear from the Lord, as well as against Scripture. And if someone says, I have a private word that no one else gets, that might be a warning. You really have to be very careful to avoid the tickling of the ears these days. And then we are to be walking out in that truth. And as we are walking out in that truth, others will come around us. They'll be like, what are you doing? Wait, you have kefir? Can you share your grains with me? Wait, how do I make kefir? There's all different ways that we can be supporting each other as a community. And as we walk and we learn and we gain our areas of expertise that the Lord has put on our heart, He'll bring others next to us to walk with us, to learn from us, at which point we become a resource for others. That is our challenge. So one of the things I want everyone to be thinking about as we move forward is, how can you become a resource for others? Joel Salatin many years ago became the resource for others about regenerative agriculture and how to properly raise food according to a biblical agrarian model that honors the Lord. He's listed as one of the top 6 agrarians in the world. He literally got paid a multi-million-dollar advance to write a book called Folks, This Ain't Normal, prior to COVID. And boy, did he call it and predict. He really did. Looking at someone like Joel went, he's an ideal demonstration of taking mindset, walking through that process, all the way now to being a resource. he helps create community around him. He has trained more small farmers, I would say, than anyone else in the world about how to grow in a way that is honoring of the Lord and that is abundantly, productively more than we could ever imagine. We experienced this on the farm that we ran in Idaho, where we tripled production in 1 year, simply by taking the farm back to God's biblical principles for how to run it. Step 2, learn the practical environmental tools for healing. Clean air, clean water, clean diet. With everything that's happening in our food supply right now, we'll blame a lot of things on spiritual, and the reality of the situation is a lot of times we're doing it to ourselves. Step 3, walk in the truth. Literally demonstrate for others. So one of the things that you can do, and this is just an example, is we have an Azure drop, which is a food drop that brings in bulk food that is raised appropriately, organically. We have a food drop right here in our parking lot, thanks to just how awesome of a church is here with the Road Church. So what ends up happening is once a month, everyone puts their orders in, and that's the scan code for Azure right there. They'll put their order in, they'll meet up out here in the parking lot, and then they'll take their food and they'll head home. Well, here's the really cool part about that process. Not only are they picking up their food, they're building community. They'll see what other people have ordered. Conversations start to occur. And what I would really love to see is the next step, where we start bringing in some local agrarians who are like, by the way, I have fresh beets. Really? I've got radishes. Want to trade? Where we can start bringing in food and community and supporting each other. And for any of you who want to see what that looks like, our next drop is this Wednesday, I believe, at 3:30. So come on by, say hi, and get to meet the crew so you can take a look. The other thing there that you'll see on your screen is all the stuff that's on the Radical Resilience website. How to store and source food, how to ferment food. Fermenting food is awesome for the microbiome. And it is the number one thing that we can be doing to support gut health, which, by the way, directly links to brain health. Brain fog, depression, anxiety, all of that is significantly changed based upon the gut microbiome. I often joke that God gave us all of the microbiome to be all of the angels that are kind of coming alongside and helping us. Only 1/10 of what makes us up is actually our DNA. The rest of it ends up being beneficial microbes. Oh, by the way, for those of you who follow Louis Pasteur, yes, people, that's germs. That's bacteria. The majority of it is actually really good for you. And by the way, some of the funguses that are out there, they're really good for you. We need them. We need to stop trying to kill everything and instead, therefore choose life and take that life approach to those things. Growing your own food, sprouting. Who here sprouts? Yeah, we need a lot more people sprouting. That is one of the most nutrient-dense foods that you can do super easily right there on your kitchen counter. Who here gardens, has a garden tower? Okay, a few more of you, that's pretty good. I have watched people who've never gardened in their life get started with a garden tower and have some pretty amazing success. Some of you may have seen the video of Natalie Schmidt, who left college, came home, and she wasn't doing very well at the time. She was pretty sick. But then she started gardening, and on a 1-acre property with the help of her family, she created a 1-acre little homestead, raising rabbits, chickens, and a garden that I was quite envious of. I now would love her to take the next step of where she's teaching others to do the same. So those of you who are interested, certainly reach out, let us know, and we'll actually get you connected so you can get some other teaching done. Even our own pastor's wife, She put together her own 2 garden towers, and she's had great success with those garden towers. She's had some learning lessons too. We all get all those little different steps. But I gotta tell you, I'm so impressed by the fact that she took the step, walked out, and did it. Food animals, like I said, chickens are my favorite. And all of us should be looking at doing some backyard chickens, things like that. The other thing that's on Radical Resilience is planning, communications, and security. This is an area where we can become a resource for others. We've got some fantastic people in here who have got their ham radio license and have some of the communication skills. We're talking about things like peer-to-peer networks now, so we can improve and maintain communications. Planning, this is just things that you can do to be reasonable. Who here has heard the term deep fake? Okay. Do you realize now that your voice can be copied so accurately that a phone call could come in and you will think that it is your college-age student who's been kidnapped? It will sound just like them. Okay. The only way we can watch out for deep fakes is twofold. 1, hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit. 2, be smart. Sit down with your family and create a plan. Know what your code word is. Something that you can easily work into your conversation so that you can't be caught off guard. This is the type of stuff that we did when we were stationed in Europe as military. We had our to-go bags packed at all times, because after all, we're living in a foreign country. I'm not saying y'all need to pack to-go bags, but what I am saying is be smart in your planning. Take the time to be intentional with your family, with your neighbors, know who your neighbors are, and start forming community. So healing's multidimensional, and detoxification now has to be a way of life. Most of us here have done some sort of deep detox back in the day. I no longer encourage deep detoxes. They're difficult. They will crash your body because there's so much of a toxin load. Instead, we have to move to a lifestyle of consistently detoxifying. Here's some simple ways that you can detoxify. Spending time in the sun, walking, intermittent fasting. We can no longer ignore the little underlying infections that have been going on. I'm guilty of this one. Due to a severe mycotoxin exposure in years past and being diagnosed both with MCAS, they try to diagnose me with all sorts of autoimmune issues, and also with something called CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is nothing more than a bunch of symptoms, really. Well, got out of the environment, did the work, felt great. Okay, fine, I'm just going to keep moving. Until a year and a half, 2 years after COVID. And I started picking up on, wait a minute, I got a left sinus that'll flare. Oh well, I'll just throw a little something out and keep on going. Nope, the left sinus flared again. Oh, I'll throw something out, I'll keep on going. That left sinus has crashed me a couple of times now, and the Lord's been very clear. Excuse me, it's time for you to actually deal with it. How many of you have experienced a sinus infection within the last 3 months? Raise your hands. Quite a few of you. I will tell you, for a lot of you, it's probably coming from a fungal base. The other thing I'll share with you is in the last 6 weeks, I had about a half dozen individuals who came in with a sinus infection, and then the sinus infection went away, and then it blew into a tooth infection. That was so severe, one of them being my husband, that he couldn't get off the couch without being in extreme pain. I'm going to share with you today the tools that we used to help reverse that I'm really going to start educating and encouraging you guys a lot to do. The biggest thing for your health is laugh, laugh, and more laughter. Gratitude. The harder things come in, the more you really need to find ways to just release, come together with family and friends, celebrate life, and laugh. And that is one of the chief ways that we can really push back against everything that's going on right now. Because although it doesn't look like it, we're winning. We are so winning. I mean, I am looking at how much is coming out now for information, and I'm just thrilled. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. That thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. And they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore I will change their glory into shame." The more we choose to do this and go la 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 la, the worse it will be for us. Many Christians who mature in their faith are cut short in their mission. Because while they're so spiritually minded and they're doing a great job for the Lord with their spirit, they've ignored their soul, they're not taking care of the emotions, and physically, you can see that they're seriously dealing with fatty liver and many other things because they're not addressing the physical. We are mind, body, and spirit. We are a three-strand cord that's not easily broken. But in reality, what I see right now is the physical's over here, the emotional's right here, and the spiritual's over here. And people are not connected even within their own bodies as to what's going on. And the body, a lot of times, will be sitting there going, please take care of me. Please take care of me. If you don't take care of me soon, I'm going to break. And then they do. They actually break. A lot of that breaking comes as a result of stored emotions. Those stored emotions, when not dealt with, often lead to what we call that C word. When people clear those emotions and take some physical steps to support, and by the way, that's not torturing the body, that is loving on the body will heal. We have great capacity to heal. That was put into us by the Lord. Number one key, we have to believe it. Number two, we have to recognize that it is the most important thing we can do is labor to rest. As we rest in the Lord, He does the healing. But we have to be able to rest in Him. I don't know about you, how restful it is it to be in a hospital? How restful is it to do chemotherapy or radiation? Is that rest to our body? Or is that war on our body? I'm not saying that we should never use chemo. What I am saying is that it has to be done properly. And there are many ways to look at all of those tools. There are something called true holistic oncologists, some of which I'm very blessed to call my colleagues and friends, who literally are walking next to people and supporting them with the tools that they need for their body to heal. We have watched stage 4 lung cancer, second time around, completely reverse. We've seen melanomas completely disappear. God gets all the glory with credit. Man's supposed to live to 120 years. Average age of death in the United States was 78. I suspect it's much lower quickly. We have got to get serious about what we're doing in order to optimize impact for the kingdom. Because we are losing over 50% of the time that we're here to give God glory and to be on mission for Him. So this right here is what we call the neutralizer protocol. This has been put out recently by a Christian company called NutriMedics, one that my mentor helped do a lot of development with, Dr. Lee Cowden. It's a 60-day protocol for those that are having symptoms of any kind. This can be neurological symptoms, hematological symptoms. This could be everything from high blood pressure to neurological symptoms of brain fog to all of those things now that we just blame on old age that are not old age. Okay? Serrapeptase and nattokinase are what's known as proteolytic enzymes. They literally clean out the pipes. And that is a critical component to removing the amyloid plaque from the capillaries, veins, and arteries. Those sudden strokes that we're seeing, yeah, that's coming as a result of clotting. The blowout and sudden bleeding that we're seeing, also coming from the same thing. Doing the protocols and including these tools really help. The methyl complete magnesium help provide key building blocks for healing. And the binder catches the toxins and helps transport them out of the body. Binders are critically important. If you don't use binders, a lot of times what will happen is it will circulate in your body, it'll get picked back up in the tissues and put back into storage. The other thing that will happen is you feel like you got the flu. So binders are a critical component. The one component of this tool that they've put together is something called Nutrimetics Dandelion. This is not just dandelion. What the Germans and the Russians have figured out is that there's something called quantum imprinting. We would call it frequency. They're far ahead of us in understanding the fact that physics has a lot more of a component of impacting our health than chemistry. And they have brought that into their product line, specifically with the homeoprophylaxis component against the snake venom peptides, which some of you have heard about based upon Dr. Artis's work. The tumor suppression TP53, which is known as the guardian of the genome. This goes directly to the turbo cancers that we're seeing. 3 segments of HIV. I have no idea why they put that in the COVID vaccine. Does that make any sense? And the BSE, bovine encephalitis prion, which is what causes mad cow disease. What's really interesting is in the scans that I've done on people, I've actually had a child who was completely unvaxxed, who had a phenomenal family, a very healthy diet, come up with a 1X for HIV in her skin. Translation, her body was really kind of feeling like it had HIV. Using protocol and addressing the stuck emotions, this child was able to reverse that pretty quickly and is now doing great. But I have seen some weird stuff come up with the scans and stuff like that. So at a very low level, by the way, this is $20 a bottle for a month. Not expensive. So when we look at what's going on with up in Denver right now with the healthcare system, well, this is a homeopathic charged remedy for prophylaxis. Think this is your vaccine against all of that stuff. Okay? Some of you may know the predecessor to that, which was called Previr. Previr was cultivated by the same base, using the same principles, by the same people, and then labeled underneath the Colorado labeling law and distributed only to us in this church. And that was our, let's start getting this out there. And what I did is I monitored for what types of reactivity, what type of benefit were we seeing, and all that type of stuff. This is the Moringa citrifolia base. And all the time that we put this out there, there were 2 individuals that had a negative reaction out of the probably, I think we have 800 some bottles that went out. So it's a good tool. This is the other tool I'm going to teach you about. It's called ozone. Some people in here have ozone equipment already and have been using it. This is the tool that we used for my husband when he went down with that oral issue. And using homeopathy and ozone, we were completely able to reverse the pain in 24 hours. Okay? We did something called ear insufflation, where we put ozone in his ears 3 times a day. Okay, that has what we call a localized impact to the head, the sinuses, the jaw, the throat, the lymph nodes, down from the ear. Okay? We also started doing something that was called ozone through rectal insufflation, which is basically like a little tiny gas enema. Super easy to do. You don't even really feel it. That has a systemic effect that will modulate the immune system and help support in all of those types of areas. So what is ozone? Ozone is nothing more than 3 oxygens. It's like what you see happen with lightning and that smell that you get of the fresh air and the lightning in a rainstorm. That's ozone that you're smelling. Okay? It helps stimulate the mitochondria, which is the energy production in your cells, better than oxygen does by more than 10 times, so that you get it oxygen efficiently. And guess what universally heals us? Hydrogen and oxygen. One of the top researchers and providers internationally said that ozone inhibits viruses from entering the cell through oxidation. So if you were to look at, here's the cell, here's the virus comes in, it has these fingers, so it's able to screw the lid off, get into the cell, and then change the cell to become a factory for that virus. What ozone does is it cuts off those fingers. Now it can't get in the cell. That's just very simply how it operates. The cool part about ozone is that it is bactericidal when done at the right doses, fungicidal, virucidal when done at higher doses. When done at lower doses, it's immune system modulating and enhancing. So it will help with chronic health issues. Here's the technical terms and the non-technical terms. It can relieve pain, it improves tissue oxygenation, increases metabolism. Yeah, it can help you lose weight. Anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, especially when we make ozonated oils and things like that. Rejuvenates the cells. It can stimulate the immune system. Here's just some of the conditions it's been used for, and right there you're looking at a couple of excellent books that you can use for a resource to learn more about it. For patients that are severely ill or dealing with really difficult chronic issues, we are now fortunate right here in our community to have something called EBOO available to us. That's extracorporeal blood ozone oxygenation. It's not cheap, but it is a fantastic tool when for those who are in need of that level of tool. Most of what we can do is simply just have the equipment in our own home. And we have many ways that we can use that easily. We can bag a limb. So like if you have a wound that's not healing, like a diabetic ulceration, it's been used very effectively for things like that. It can be used for acute injuries as well. We can use cupping for skin lesions in certain places on the body and things like that. Ozone's been used to get rid of warts, all sorts of stuff like that. We can use it for you ladies. We can use it for vaginal insufflation. You can get rid of bladder infections, those types of things. We can also use it in water. Right now, if you were seeing, for all of us who have to go to the dentist, if your dentist is not using ozone, you may want to consider finding another dentist. In fact, you absolutely want to consider finding another dentist, unless your dentist is going to go learn right away. I really encourage you to see biological holistic dentists for your dentistry care. We now have a great resource here in our community, and I'm really excited about what I'm seeing out of some of the resources that are finally starting to show themselves here in our community. And I will tell you that I've had personal interactions with one of the dentists here, and they've been absolutely awesome at getting health recovery ministry members in and working together to start advancing them in their health goals. Here's an example of the type of equipment you can have in your home. That code right there will take you straight to their website. And if you take a picture of this slide, you can look at what we recommend for equipment. The machine that you see on there called the Basic Ozone Package, that's the creme de la creme. That's all any of you most of you will ever need to do home insufflation with ozone. It is a little bit pricier, but it's kind of a one and done. And by the way, you go through so little oxygen that basically if you have the oxygen tank and electricity, you're good for at least a year before you'll even have to think about refilling that oxygen tank. I encourage you to see an industrial oxygen tank because we can get those filled with 100% oxygen and you don't have to have a physician's order. You don't want an order for oxygen on your insurance because it will lower your life insurance, it'll raise your rates, it'll lower your life insurance policy, blah, 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 blah. Okay, in fact, what I really encourage more than anything at this point is get off the net. Do not have a medical record anywhere that is online because you're being targeted. Some of us have been off the net for so long that they've kind of forgotten that we even exist. I like it that way. I don't get all these reminders telling me to go get my flu shot. Okay? That other machine you're seeing there is less expensive. It doesn't have quite the bandwidth, but it's still a great tool. So here's the crazy part. We're hearing about Ebola and Marburg. Dr. Robert Rowan and Howard Robbins, years ago, actually went down into Africa and treated patients using ozone. Every single one of those patients lived. Marburg has a 70% mortality rate. They did something called direct IV, which is considered somewhat controversial in the ozone world. We would prefer not to do direct IV, but I gotta tell you, about the time you're talking about live or die, I think we'll do direct IV. But there's lots of tools that we can use before we get to that point to really support. We can use tools like what we have prophylactically, and we can use ozone in many other ways. I'm really encouraging people to go out, and those that can, if there's one tool that you add to your home clinic, and I really think we need to move into an attitude of having a home clinic, and then what we'll do in Health Recovery Ministry is we'll support you. I got a problem, help. We have a team of people who are skilled. You can say, okay, here's what you do. Here's how you use your equipment. We'll walk you right through it. And more than anything, there's a lot that we could be doing to knock out those sinus infections, those little things that are popping up with our family, so that we don't lose time off of work or life. There's a lot that we can be doing to take care of ourselves. There's chronic issues that can be reversed, like type 2 diabetes, using a combination of ozone and diet. Oh, by the way, cancers don't like ozone. Hint, hint. We've got a lot that we can be working with. To learn more about all of those types of things at the really deep level, you can join the Health Recovery Ministry. If you join the ministry, there's 5 components that you get. 1, there's a lifestyle resilience program. 2, there's classes that you can go in there and watch where we go into depth in all of these different things. There's immune system support protocols. You get access to Fullscript, and I have all of the protocols in there that have been curated. You can ask questions. We come back to you and answer your questions, and then we provide any additional content as well. And here's the bottom line. Your biography becomes your biology. It includes the totality of your choices, the things you feed your body, your thoughts, your actions, your food, the thing that you feed your life. You are in charge of that. God didn't give that beautiful temple to anyone else but you. Part of how we worship Him is how we take care of this. Part of how we shine His light to others is in how we present ourselves. I'm not saying worship by any means, but how we serve, how we keep all of that in balance. He gave you that temple to take care of, and He wants you to glorify Him in how you care for it. Our job is to come alongside and help you do that so you can shine a light to others. Thank you.